Um, oh, I want to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded. Thank you, Hannah. And just quickly sort of go through and see if we could do an approval of the meeting minutes before turning it over to Mr. Varley to go through some interesting work around stations. So I wanted to see if I could get a quick motion to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Great. All in favor, please say aye or indicate that you are in favor by putting the thumbs up for
Aye.
your screen.
Aye.
All right. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Administrative work out of the way. Dennis, I'll hand the floor over to you. I would love to hear a little bit more about your work on stations and the interesting sort of happenings that are going on right now.
Okay, I'm not sure how the this is set up. Is they're going to go through the presentation I gave that, so does someone have that? I'm not sure if that anyone sent. I know I just got this meeting popped out if I didn't get any background on what you wanted me to do. So
Apologies. Yeah. So
So Dennis, we were hoping you could run through the presentation you gave to the board of directors at their last meeting in January, and we can certainly pop that up here. You just tell us when you want to advance the next one. Claudette, I see.
yeah, that's probably makes the most sense because I don't have it readily available. But okay, yeah, you can pop that up now if you want.
So Isabella, can you pop that up when you get a chance? And Dennis will run through that in a second.
Yeah, okay. So, in the interim, if anybody has any specific questions, I certainly can answer them. I can give you a little background on which was kind of the first slide of the presentation. So, I came here in 23, the end of August in 23, so basically September of 23. So, Phil Eng had determined that, he wanted us more focus on stations. At the time when I came up here, it was just stations that we were responsible for. Subsequent to that, we took over, we absorbed transit facility maintenance, which is mostly the trades, tinsmiths, carpenters, plumbers, trades like that. Generally, the maintenance of the facilities in our stations, and then subsequent to that, now structures and all the structures are under us as well. So it's more my background anyway. I was the deputy chief engineer at Long Island Railroad, so all the trades were under me at the time. The station maintenance, but more the power, bridges and buildings, track, signals. It was all under engineering and Long Island Railroad. Phil was one of our past presidents, and when he came up here, he knew that I was pension eligible, and he invited me to come up and help him out at the T. So he's Phil's very convincing. Initially I said no, thanks for thinking about me, but nope. But here I am. So been here about 2.5 years now. So
Glad you're here. Can you see the screen? Is it up?
I can.
All right, you let
So,
me know when you want to advance, and I'll do that.
okay, you can advance now. I already gave my introduction. So this is the department overview. So as I was just saying, in 23 we created stations. In 24, the next year, we took over transit facility maintenance. That used to be under engineering and maintenance. So now E&M, engineering maintenance, has maintenance away and power. And then I have the infrastructure effectively. So then in 24, we formed a support group. There was in this agency, we had no in-house engineering capability. It was all third partied out, which is not, quite frankly, what I was used to. Nor do I think it's efficient in the way to grow your workforce. So we are in the process of hiring. We have onboarded. I have a deputy chief of engineering who is a licensed engineer in Massachusetts. All the jobs that we're posting in that area, they not only have to be licensed engineers, but they have to agree to use them. We have in this agency licensed engineers, but they don't use them. They hire consultants. So doesn't really make any sense to me. Doesn't develop that in-house capacity and experience. So that's kind of where we're going with that. In 25, so just last year, the end of last year, in my specific department, now we've taken over space planning for the agency as well. So we had no at the T, which is odd for an 8,000 member organization, we had no space policy. So space was allocated however you happen to get it. Knew somebody planted your flag, found a hole someplace. It's not equitable. It doesn't make sense. It's inefficient. There was a lot of lease space all over the place. Some of it was half empty, quite frankly. It was kind of crazy. So now we're trying to focus that together under us, centralize that, and we'll have a central policy on allocation of space. And then we'll develop standards as well. There's no space standards here. So we'll develop standards for going forward. So, and then I guess I already said that about 25, where we have all the facilities, stations and structures. So that's kind of where we're at now. We'll see what 26 brings. Next slide. This I already alluded to. The departments continue to grow. Fortunately, we've had the good fortune to be able to increase our headcount. It was when I came here, I was kind of surprised at how small the in-house forces were. It was almost, yeah, I don't know how you could have maintained steady good repair as the system decapitalizes, which we've well memorialized that we are decapitalizing. We don't have the 25 billion that I think was quoted that we would need to become a steady good repair. So inherently, your maintenance needs go up, your steady good repair maintenance needs go up. That wasn't, in a global perspective, that wasn't accounted for. So now we're ramping up, growing our engineering and trades. I already spoke about the professional engineers. There's a slide you'll see on this presentation about the drone inspections. A lot of inspections have to be hands-on. It's required by regulation, but only the regulatory ones. All the other ones can be done however you can get to it. Ladder, lift, or in this case, I'll use an example of drones. So we have in-house, on my department alone, we have 5 fully licensed drone pilots. So that's an enormous amount of flexibilities, and we have drones. Obviously, we already had a drone apparently that we just couldn't operate. So now we can. So and I'll talk about the composite gang going on in subsequent slides and the space planning team. So next slide. If anybody has any questions, just stop me. That on the If you can operate that video, this is an example of drone inspection. So that block on the left is an actual video. I don't know if you can operate it in the presentation there. So maybe
I can't, but let me see if I can find it, Dennis.
yeah. If not, I'll explain it.
Well, that was suboptimal. You know what, Dennis? Let me get to the actual board present recording and I'll show it that way. Just give me 1 second. You guys see all this?
Not yet.
Okay, hold on. See that now?
Now, yep, now you see it. So just gotta
Right.
speed it up to me. And okay, okay, there you go.
Okay.
I think it went too far. Gotta show the.
That's a bad gateway. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I had trouble too. We're not the Zoom for us. We always use Teams, so
No,
it's
this is the T's website is not
yeah.
cooperating.
Sometimes the Zoom for us, like when I was logging in, it took me a while to log in.
We like to make you work for it, Dennis.
Yeah, it's all right.
Uh,
I think it's our firewall here. It's not really set up for.
yeah.
Okay, so you'll get
This is it here, right?
that's the culvert. There you go. Oh, there you go. If you can click, if you can get that one going. So it should. So you see the drone. So that's the Dana Street Bridge. So obviously over a body of water. I think it's the Mystic River. I know it's the Mystic River. So that operator is on terra firma. So the operator, the engineer in this case, is on the shore and he's going to inspect that bridge seat on the right there. So to inspect that bridge seat in the past, we would have had to get a boat and figure out how to get up there, right? Not the easiest thing so if you had a concern about, I think I mentioned at the presentation, something like a bridgehead, which we respond to, or a road bridge, dump truck goes by, the dumps up a little bit, hits the bridge. We have to inspect that. We put the track at restricted speed and we have to inspect that bridge to make sure it wasn't racked, or these seats have what they call a keyhole. We have to make sure that everything remains in the keyhole. Most of the time, bridges win that battle with a truck, but not all the time. I've seen that go bad. So that's what that's seeing. So we have 5 pilots. The engineers, even if they're not a drone pilot, can look at that and inspect the bridge or whatever it is we want to look at. We also use it for tunnels with LiDAR, which is pretty neat. We tunnels mapped out with the LiDAR. So this I use an example of, and actually the rest of them I can just talk to if you want. If it's easy, you can just put them up without it speaking
Okay.
up.
All right, cool. Give me 1 second. Hey, Dennis, what was that camper trailer thing at the beginning of the video?
That's my summer house. No, that's actually somebody's. That's not our property. I have no idea. You know, somebody's camper. We just got permission to access the bridge.
Got it.
So yeah, it's not. I don't know. Um, but so anyway, this is a good example of in-house ingenuity. This is kind of neat, actually. It was our engineering team that thought of this. So they went. I'm not allowed to advertise where they got the bumpers from because it's a sporting goods place, but $20 worth of those are just boat bumpers that to protect the side of your boat, so the port to starboard side. So they got them at the discount rack in October for $10 each. The piece of Lexan from our scrap pile, threaded rod from Kindorf, block of wood from the shop, and a cellular-enabled camera. So that culvert on the right is the Belle Island culvert. So to set the table, that's our blue line's running over that. So we're running trains over that culvert. So it's not just to let water in it, it's actually a structural component of our track infrastructure, right? So it needed to be inspected. No one's going to want to crawl in there, even if you can fit. So it's all kinds of muck and water and everything else. So now we sent that camera in. And we didn't have a propulsion system yet, so we had to let the wind and tide take it in. But what you're seeing is that device on the left took that picture. So I said at the board presentation, so then the issue now is how do you get, normally you'd go with a drag line on each side, but how do you get the drag line down there? So we're ordering it. It's probably on its way already. We're ordering one of those little model airboats. A boat with a propeller will get hung up on that muck, but we ordered one of those little airboats like you'd see in the Everglades, and then we'll be able to send the drag line through to the other side, and then we'll be able to move back and forth that device there on the left and inspect whatever we want to inspect, take a second look, a different angle, whatever we might need. And with the airboat, it's going to be like $600. So in the past, we would have had to get somebody to design it, and Lord, it would take a long time and it wouldn't be $600, trust me. So, and then we can just pick it up and move it to another culvert. So, it's pretty neat. It's just like I said at the board presentation, kind of Yankee ingenuity. What can we develop? The cellular enabled camera, we can look at it from anywhere. So it was pretty cool. If anybody has any questions on these slides, just ask me. The next slide. So this is an example. A few years ago, we had zero in-house capacity to design something like a column or a bridge repair. So I already spoke to the engineering, how we have our in-house engineers. So that was a degraded column, structurally degraded. It wasn't just concrete on columns and tunnels are not typically structural. They're designed to protect the steel that is structural. So it's crash and fire protection. And it's the same for, depending on the bridge construction. A steel bridge, it's similar for a steel bridge. Box beam, pre-stressed concrete, that's structural. But in this case, that concrete is not structural. But unfortunately, the steel behind it was degraded. So our in-house engineers designed the repair. They did the steel repair. And then now you have to encase it, right? So our in-house forces, the iron workers did the mesh, our masons did our carpenters did the forms, and our masons did the concrete. And what you're seeing on the far right is the finished product. In itself, that's not a major project, but we had no capacity to do that in the past. So now that's one column. Next time, you do a few columns. Time after that, you work on a bridge abutment. Time after that, you work on a through girder bridge and actually repair the compression or tension flange or the web, and then you re-encase it with concrete. That's how you build that skill set and the internal capacity. Where I was before this, we could actually build bridges. We actually did them ourselves with our operating people. We haven't designed and fabricated, but we would do the abutments, design them, design the actual bridge, and then we'd pick them on top, and our welders and everybody would connect them. Plumbers would waterproof the deck. Track workers would come in and do the approach and the ballast and the rail. So that's where we want to get to. It's not going to be overnight, but that's the plan.
Hey,
So
hey Dennis, th- so I saw this presentation at the board, and the board was flabbergasted. I was flabbergasted. As someone who's been advocating for years for more funding for the T, it was so that you could start doing the stuff you're doing right now. One just suggestion or request or whatever you want to call it is if there is some way to quantify what it would have cost in the past with the third parties versus your folks doing it, that would help people like me make the argument why this is a good investment and it's actually paying off.
I
Just some food for thought.
yeah, I can tell you I can quantify exactly what we spent on this because we tracked the hours. What it would have cost, that would be hard to quantify. We would have to get a consultant in to do the design. So that's, probably 15,000, if they pick up the phone, it's $10,000, right? So probably $15,000 on ballpark. And then we would have had a heavy civil contractor do the work. What I can do is when I first got here, we took Suffolk Downs. Um, I had to take it out of service, actually, a section of the platform because it was structurally unsafe. I was kind of surprised, quite frankly, it was still in service. But anyway, and we at the time had to hire a consultant to do the design, which is just a shoring design. And then they hired SPS, which is a heavy civil contractor, to do the shoring. So we can get what we paid on that. Now, to extrapolate that to this, it's not exactly the same thing. But if Suffolk Downs was today, we wouldn't have called anybody. We would have done the shoring drawing in-house, and we would have facilitated the repair. On the subsequent slide, you'll see Riverside, where we did platform work. That's an example of that. As far as like the dollar equation, we'd have to kind of spitball that, quite frankly.
No, I understand. It's just, I think you know what I'm saying. For
Yeah.
someone like me, it constantly making the argument that investing in the T is actually a good thing for the long run. This is the sort of stuff we're talking about. And also getting your own engineers to be able to use their own stamps and stuff like that. I mean, it will save tons of money over time. And it's just any
Oh,
argument you
yeah.
can use to make the case would be much appreciated.
Well, think of the flexibility. You can, if something happens today, we can address it immediately. We can get the engineers out right away, our structures people out right away. They're all right away trained, including me. We all can access the right away. I don't have to get consultants and contractors trained. The flexibility and the learning and the skill set, they get to know the system, the faults and benefits of the system back and forth. They've been there before. It's not, in my experience anyway, it is extremely atypical to rely on outside consultants and contractors to do what is inherently in-house maintenance, typically in-house maintenance. You're getting potentially you could get a new consultant, same firm, but a new consultant every time that may have never even been here before. And it takes them a while just to even know what they're looking at. Where in-house, you get that experience and you're teaching the junior people. It's absolutely the way to go. It's just we somehow this agency had kind of well whatever happened before me, but we have a good team with not just me. I mean we have
Yeah.
MLW and on the GM Ang's direction. He's letting us go with this. He's like, listen,
Yeah.
keep going. So,
Well, I can tell you exactly what happened, but I won't bore you. There's a couple of hands up. I don't know if one of you folks just jump in if that's all right with you, Matt.
I don't know who wants to.
Sure.
Leonard, Todd, why don't you
Sure,
just
sure.
jump in?
So what happened is that the team wanted to keep FTEs down, and because we, along with Brian, from a much lower status, on the MBTA Rider Oversight Committee, if we were like not increasing headcount and cutting people, it seemed obvious to us that was this was doing things with consultants only was the problem, like for exactly the reasons you laid out, Mr. Varley. And even if it's hard to quantify, or maybe even impossible to quantify, in any tight sense, I think just kind of listing out some of the things that you just said to us in a paper or a document or a set of slides, is really helpful, because I'm a little bit concerned. Looking at some of the information coming out from the finance subcommittee, that we're reducing the rate at which we're increasing headcount. And in a previous, I think, full advisory board meeting, people were like, "Well, I think we're hiring too many people at the MBTA." This is and so I'm hearing some rumblings, where people are like, maybe we have too many people, and I'm a little bit concerned. Not a little bit concerned. I'm very concerned about that, because it's very easy to get to this point where, okay, we're just going to bring in consultants because we don't want an FTE, because FTE in the long run is just a lot of money, and so whatever we can do to avoid getting back to that bad form of behavior would be great. So I'm just advocating for what Brian wanted a little more strongly. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's listen, Boston's a really nice. I even hadn't spent much time in Boston before I came here. It's it's a really great city, and it should have a transit system that is appropriate for it. And any city, regardless of where it is, really needs a functioning transit system that's safe, clean, reliable. It's integral to the attraction of the city. Who wants to live and work in a place where you can't really rely on the transit system? So it's kind of, I mean, I don't know. It's a shame they all those cutbacks were made, but we want to keep moving forward. We don't want to go back.
Yeah, Mr. Varley and Brian, I just wanted to add the other component besides cost is time, right? So procurement, we all know how long that process could take, and it would seem a little ridiculous to go through a procurement process just for one column, right? And that's what may have happened before. And it's like you go through that long process and you don't even necessarily get better prices because the contractors have to, account for all that overhead to go after that type of job. So there's also, I don't know, Mr. Varley, if you could comment on that, because the procurement process, although it's there for a good reason, sometimes it's so bureaucratic and a waste of time, which in time is money as well.
Yeah, it's not seamless. I mean, there's a lot of requirements in any public sector procurement, and there's a lot of demands on the procurement department. What we would have done in the past is probably gone to capital, not probably, definitely gone to capital. They would have taken an existing consulting contract and issued a task order off of it, but that's their own internal procurement, and that's not seamless either. And then we'd have to bring the consultant out. They'd have to look at it. All right, now you see what you're talking about. Then they'd have to come up with the design. It's we're way ahead of that before
Yeah,
any of that would happen.
and that's only the soft cost design aspect. Then you got to go procure
Right.
for construction as well.
Yep. Yeah. And our soft costs are pretty percentage-wise high here, based on my experience anyway. Now we're gonna always need, don't get me wrong, for big projects, we're gonna always need consultants for specialty work that we don't do all the time, but things that it's reasonable to assume, and I can guarantee that for perpetuity with our legacy system, we're gonna have column structural repairs, degraded concrete. It's just, the system's a legacy system. We're not building brand new shiny tunnels next to it. So, and they leak too, because so yeah, it's the things like that. It's We just got to figure out something to quantify it, but intuitively, I think people get it. They understand it. Another question, Mr. Rawson?
Hi, Dennis. Brad Ross. I'm from the city of Somerville. Thanks so much for the presentation. And I'm really glad that Brian Kane reminded those of us who did not see your work at the board recently to watch that video. So sorry if I'm asking dumb questions. Um, Several of us on this call are very active at the Boston Region MPO. Several of your colleagues do a great job bringing project proposals to the regional MPO for consideration for formula funding. I don't think this is the space to have a longer discussion, but I can't miss an opportunity to spotlight the importance of the MPO in supporting your team's work in this era of declining resources at the T. Perhaps you, colleagues, and Brian and Isabella and the advisory board staff can figure out the right way to communicate back with membership here at the advisory board and connect the dots over to MPO. We have a lot of potential funding on the table this coming 5-year capital plan. We know how important regional rail, rapid transit, and other state of good repair projects are for the regional coalition all across the subregions, not just in the inner core. And I think that the MBO could benefit from this kind of discussion to understand the capacity building that you and the team are engaged in and how we as an MPO can help address any funding shortfalls given the resources available to us. So just a little bit of a commercial for follow-up. Thanks for being here.
No, no problem. All right, so I think we can probably go to the next slide, unless anybody has any more questions about this. Here's an example of, I think I spoke to the Suffolk Downs situation. So here you have on the left, you're seeing the state of the lack of state of good repair of the platforms at Riverside. It's a busy station, and then so the design, the repair was designed in-house, and our in-house masons and carpenters facilitated the repair. So what you're seeing on the right is the ongoing repair with the forming and the wire mesh and the concrete, and then what was left when it was done in a tactile and was put back in service. That was done under a diversion on the green line, so we had an existing diversion. That's another advantage of doing things in-house. We have a lot more, since they report to us and we schedule them, we have a lot more flexibility on night orders. If the weather changes and we need them doing something else, we can put them on the next time we have night orders. We can jump on diversions, as piggyback on diversions, as the industry term is. So there's a lot more flexibility as opposed to if you try to schedule a contractor and a consultant, you have to live with that. And if there's any delays or changes, you're going to pay for it. Where in this case, we just reassign them to do some different work. So that's a good example of some savings there. So all right, next slide. This is a Newton Center. So these ramps for accessibility are not insignificant. It's the only way to get down to our system. So that was actually, it was a board member from DOT that pointed it out. She lives there, and pointed out to some of our staff, and we made sure that was addressed right away. So it was patched. It was just patches of 1060, which is a mortar mix. And it was hard to navigate. It wasn't a smooth service. It was problematic. So rather than continue to patching it, which is just a lesson of futility as far as I'm concerned, our in-house forces actually did a proper repair, for lack of a better term, that should last a long time. So it's textured concrete, so it has traction, smooth enough, however, that if you're on a walker or a wheelchair, it doesn't negatively impact your path of travel. And on the right is what you see now. I should have put a picture on what it used to look like, but it was pretty rough. But now it's nice, smooth ingress, egress into the station. So, and that's our typical repairs now. We're getting away from, sometimes we do have to patch fast, especially when spring comes now and in April and everything starts to pop. We'll be doing some fast repairs just to keep the system going, but then we're going to come back and do them right. So, next slide. Pump rooms. I spoke about the pump rooms. Pump rooms are integral to the operation of our system. They're pretty rough. They've been there a long time. I think I said at the presentation that those controls on the left, those gray boxes there, I think, maybe Moses installed them. They were there for a long time and they didn't work. You can see electrical infrastructure on the right. That's gang box there, the switch gear. They're got our money's worth out of them, put it that way. So now our new standard is we did need a consultant to design and consult the controls, but we standardized them. And on the left, you see in that where my cursor is, if you can see it, but on the left, the controls are now, that's our new standard. Our in-house electricians put the controls in. And then on the bottom right, those are the new pumps and check valves and all the related infrastructure. Our in-house employees did all that work. In the past, they weren't working, so I don't know what happened in the past, but I think they talked about repairing them. But now we have made pump rooms a priority. If we don't get the water out of, latent water in a tunnel does a lot of what is obvious bad things. It rots the ties out, base rail corrosion, all the things like that. But a lot of things that people don't think about, shorts the signals out, shorts the circuits out, causes delays. So when you have a shorted circuit out, the signal system thinks they call it TOL. They think it's a train on the line. So the signal system, once they shunt the track like that, it doesn't know it's water. As far as the signal system is concerned, there's a train there, and you can't send another one on top of it. So you have to have signals respond. They have to get the water out. When the pump stations are working, you don't have that condition, and your infrastructure lasts a lot longer. So they're extremely critical. Like I said, they don't look pretty. Even when you're done, they don't look pretty, but they're 100% operational and functional. So next slide. I think next slide's more pump stations, but yeah, it's the under the river, under the harbor pump room. That was a swamp down there. The pumps one was working, one wasn't. There's two pump rooms down there. So now they're both fully operational, and those are our in-house forces on the right. Actually, they actually did all the work themselves, so and tested it. So it's good. They hadn't in the past. They kind of patched them together. So and the gangs that do that, they kind of get into it because when they're done, they've actually done something that makes sense. So and it protects our infrastructure.
Yeah,
So
Dennis, can you just expand on that a little bit about the pride that I think you're probably seeing back in the workforce? Because I mean, I was at the T, geez, a long time ago now, and we weren't exactly jumping up and down about being at the T. So it seems like folks are a little more prideful today.
yeah, when your first impression when you come someplace, so I came in here cold, right? So I was as everybody knows, I was at the Long Island Railroad before, and there was a lot of pride in the Long Island Railroad. Our forces wore on the board with their own money. I have a bunch of them myself. Long Island Railroad shirts and sweatshirts, and you weren't embarrassed to say you worked at the Long Island Railroad. It was a desirable job. A lot of it was you say, wow, I work for the railroad. It's a neat place to work. That you learn a lot. You're compensated well enough. You can feed your family, but you actually feel like you're doing something worthwhile. So when I came here, it was kind of odd. No one wanted to admit they worked for the T, and it was kind of a different culture. The technology's easy enough. We all understand it. Well, people have been kicking around like me anyway, but the culture's hard to change. So there's no reason to be embarrassed working at the T. We provide, to my mind anyway, a very essential service to a large swath of the Commonwealth. And this is a lot of technical work. You should be proud of what you're doing here. So now that we're doing a lot more of this work in-house and not just plugging the dike and doing kind of boring standard maintenance, when you start doing projects like that, the men and women that do this, they really kind of get into doing the finished project. And yeah, that's, I worked on that. And you hear them start talking, like, yeah, I worked on it. Actually, we fixed that. We worked on that. We did that. And that's the kind of, as you expand your capacity in the system and, they start working with other gangs and different trades and helping each other out. That's how that kind of develops. I'm not expecting people to run around with, T tattoos all day long, but just to be able to, yeah, I work for the T. I'm not embarrassed to say I work for the T. I don't know, people shouldn't be embarrassed. It's a good place to work. Like I said, we're providing a valuable service. And I think as people start to feel like they're actually making a difference, that all starts to fuel on itself. So
Well, I think Len Diggins has a T tattoo. If you ask him, he might show it to you.
Well, I have plenty of tattoos. I do not have a T tattoo. I know someone who does though, who used to be on the writer oversight committee. But now that I'm talking, I'll simply say, Brian, you're impressing me with your sentiments about these things. That some people would consider like soft values, or at least things that are hard to measure. But I agree with you completely. I will say though, 2 or 3 years ago, I think morale was just low. I know some employees who live in Arlington who work for the T. And morale was just down because the whole system was crawling along because of all of the track restrictions. And so it's just a hard time. We're coming out of COVID slowly, but I know what you mean about the long term, morale. And I think some of it sometimes has to do with public perception. And so this might be a little bit out of scope for you. But how does the public, in New York, view the Long Island Railroad? Because I think that can go a long way towards people. Even if you have pride, sometimes you won't say it because you know that people being outside of your group don't really value you. How does the public look at LIR?
New York's a tough place, right? So no one's shy about criticizing the Long Island Railroad or New York City Transit, where I worked before I went to the railroad. But they rely on it. If you want to sit in traffic to get into Manhattan for 4 hours a day, at least you can do that, or you can jump on the Long Island Railroad that is almost always on time and be there in 55 minutes, right? So, well, depending on where you live on Long Island, but so it's viewed definitely more favorably than the T was. My God, yeah. I mean, it's I almost there's always naysayers, right? So people can complain about anything, but we always go through that with snowstorms. They want you to like they can't get out of their driveway, but you're supposed to catch every flake, right? So before it hits the platform. So there's always going to be that kind of stuff going on. But I would say that the Long Railroad was viewed much more favorably than the T was 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago. Now, it only had a little bit to do with that. A lot had to do with the vision of funding and the vision of the governor and Phil and everybody else associated with it, and eliminating those speed restrictions. Quite frankly, when I came here, we had like 260 speed restrictions. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know you could have that. If we put a speed restriction on in the railroad, transportation 30 seconds later was asking me when I was going to get my guys to take it off. So, when the repair was, and under FRA, you only have 30 days to eliminate a speed restriction anyway. So there was none of that. Now, when we went 100% speed restriction free, that was not insignificant. That was huge. I mean, I used to we have Charlestown facility, so I'd go from community college, which is closest to our apartment, to Charlestown at Sullivan Square, and I wanted to push the train. It was so slow, right? But now it's going to be it's 50 soon, and it went to 40. It was all those repairs, all that effort, and people they absolutely noticed that. I mean, you couldn't miss the red line. I think to put it in perspective, the day I came here for orientation, the two instructors were saying, well, we live south of Braintree, but we don't take the T. We have to take the commuter rail because the T's too slow. So, I'm thinking to myself, where am I? So this is orientation. Now you fly on that thing. So the public, our ridership absolutely notices that. So, and the ridership's way up. You can see just by like when I just see from being out in the infrastructure, the trains, there's way more people riding the T. Part of that's return to work. More companies are bringing their people back, but people are taking it, and they're also taking it on weekends. And they're probably not. Most of them aren't going to work. They're using it to get around. So same with the regional rail. Like now you can go to lunch in Newburyport if you want, and just hey, let's go up. Go to lunch, take the T, pop back down. So it's that's what it's about. People once people start appreciating that, you're always going to have some people that complain. That's human nature. I personally don't spend hardly any time on social media, so I'm kind of doesn't, but I think people will really appreciate a lot of the changes.
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of on the wonky stats thing or economics thing. I think there are pretty high elasticities to be associated with frequency of service. And the amount of service. So making the trains go faster will make people want to use it, making it more reliable, make people want to use it. And certainly with the commuter rail, they've increased the number of trips on commuter rail, and now instead of having an hour long headway, it's a half hour for a commuter rail is much more reasonable and inviting. So, all right, thank you.
No problem. And I think next slide. This is just an example of change, and this is just changing materials and methods. So for whatever the reason that escapes me, we're getting a lot of vandalism, tile breaking vandalism in our not just in our restrooms, but stations in general, but in our restrooms. So we had just done Braintree bathroom not too long ago, and someone or some ones went in with a hammer or some other impact device and smashed the tiles. So rather than just put tiles back to repeat the performance, our new standard will be the epoxy and concrete, which is far more robust. They may still try to smash it, but it's not going to fracture like tiles, just things like that. We are experiencing more vandalism here than I think Boston had experienced in the past. Um, I have no idea why that is, but it's unfortunately a fact. Um, I don't know why people feel compelled to do that, but anyway, so it's just a quick example of how we are thinking about. We're not just repeating the same. Let's put it back again, see if they smash it again. In this case, it's going to be a lot more robust. So next slide. And the stations, we had a kind of a lot of fun with this actually. So some of these are kind of cool, like aquarium and the one in the airport with the blueprints. But so the booths were, they're not manned except for these ambassadors will go in there on break. So they're not used anymore. But even if we were to remove them, they'd look horrible because they've been in the same spot in the floor for all these years, and there's conduit coming up that's stubbed up. So we said, well, maybe we can, make them kind of like an advertising, a little more inviting. The first one we did was the aquarium one. And then, the stations are, you know, it's the front and back door of the system, right? So people come in, the average person, they just want the T to a core charter. They want the T to take them where they have to go on time and safely. And the station should be clean and bright and inviting. They're not going to move. No one's going to move. They're not going to. It's a transient population. They're in and out. But if you can make it look a little more inviting on the way in, we tried to capture the region, where the location was, like Chinatown and Revere with the sandcastles and aquarium with the Finding Nemo type of theme. So it's just something that we've been doing. It's not a lot of money. And we wrapped them. And in the past, they had the Charlie Card sign and a lot of footprints and some scratches and some scratch-edy and some bad slogans and everything else. So we're just making them look a little cleaner. So that's all. We're just showing, something, thinking it just to be a little creative. And then the next, and then that's it. If anyone has any questions, that was my spiel. So.
Well, let me beat Brian to this one. With respect to what you've done, with the artistic thing with the stations. For me, it's an element of the kind of like the dignity. Of the civic life. Of the public life. And so it's like let's make things that the public experiences on a daily basis. A place that's nice, that's inviting. Just because it's public space, it doesn't have to be the ugliest, or the most boring. And I think it shows that that leaders care, and I think that percolates down. But certainly when it shows that leaders don't care, that certainly percolates down too in a bad way. So I'm really happy to see that. And certainly when we went over this deck in the Writer Website Committee. A couple of weeks ago, we were all impressed and thankful for that too. Thank you.
No problem. I mean, people, and I did at the presentation, I did give a shout out to Power. Station should be bright, right? So since Doug took over Power, or MOW, they relamped 2,500, relamped or changed fixtures of 2,500 fixtures system wide. about 2,200 of them, ballpark, were in the station environment. So think about this, 2,200 more lights that weren't working before that are working now. So, and we still have ways to go, but there's nothing worse than going into a dark station. I remember community college, the first time I looked at it. Now you have students getting out of their night classes in the dark, and it was dismal. It really bothered me. So we had it relamped, and then the platform that's out of service, they lit that up too because it does brighten up the whole station. So things like that. Not a big effort, just had to get them relamped and some of the lights repaired. But um, it, things like that, people really notice. Like you don't want to be in a dark station. Just you shouldn't be, or a dirty station for that matter. We have ramped up the cleaning a lot. The stations were, when I got here, to my mind anyway, were not the way they should be, cleanliness wise. It's tough to keep them clean, especially in the winter. Everybody's tracking all the snow and salt in and everything else, but still. So that's part of the focus. It all goes together. It all ties in together. So in my world, we worry about the infrastructure, the safety, and obviously the aesthetics. Hmm.
So I'm still trying to get a handle on what you do and what you don't do. So you do all the tunnels, bridges, culverts, all that. You do the tracks also, the catenary.
No, no,
Safety.
not at. I have in the past, but not at this agency. No, that's maintenance away. So they do the tracks. Now we work, obviously, the infrastructure, the structures, a lot of the structures are under us. So the tracks go on top of those. Or
Yeah.
but so we work in tandem and then we work close to them. That's typical in the industry. So we just work. That's one thing that was odd to me anyway. A few years ago, there's a lot of silos. There wasn't that integration that I would have expected. Usually in railroading in general, I know during my tenure when I was coming up in transit, you're in a tunnel. If I was the structures guy at the time, so I had to know if I was going to do something that was going to negatively impact the power of the signal as a track guy or gal. I had to know enough about their operation to know that I might impact it. So you ended up getting very close with these people and working, and a lot of things get done on a phone call, quite frankly. You just, hey, in this case, Doug is the MOW guy. Hey, Doug, we're going to be doing this. So you may want to send somebody out to look because I think you either want to jump on our diversion or you may want to do X because we're doing Y and it's potentially going to impact you. Things like that. That synergism really just comes with experience, and you're not going to get that like remotely, or you really have to live it. So, and that's what we're trying to get is when you get that in-house capacity and people start thinking like that and working with each other, that just kind of organically grows in itself. So,
And elevators and escalators, is that your department?
no, it's under power. So, I'm involved in it because Phil knows I had elevators and escalators in my prior life, but right now that they're still under power. So that's a third party contractor, Kone.
And you do all these things in commuter rail system also?
The Technically the stations are under us in commuter rail, but commuter rail is a different model, right? It's all third partied out at this juncture anyway. So Keolis runs the commuter rail and railroad operations oversees their contracts. So
So do you maintain the structures themselves on commuter rail, or what about the cleaning and things like that?
that's all under Keolis. So we get involved when there's a concern. Or if they're trying to make changes, like we were up at Salem trying to figure out if we could go to double track territory through the tunnel there. So, and the capacity at the station. So, uh, Phil had asked Sam Zhao, who's the head of capital, if we would go up and, look at it and work with the commuter rail folks and see if that was possible. It ends up we don't have the clearance required, but so we get involved in it, but we don't actually run it. Third parties, we can't really tell. When you have one of the downsides of a contract, when you have a contract, is the contract is going to do whatever's in the contract, right? If you want them to do something different, if it's not in the contract, then that requires a discussion and usually financial changes, right? Where when you run the system yourself, you have a lot more flexibility. and experience. But the model right now is it's third party and commuter rail.
And parking garages and parking lots, that's someone else.
Yeah, the lots are some of the lots are owned by us, but the garages are under not like I'm passing the buck, but the parking garages are under revenue. And revenue has Keolis third-party contractor maintaining them. We do inspect the parking garages though. We inspect them from a structural perspective. So, but they're maintained and run by revenue. They take care of the snow and they take care of, all the garage type things. I
So
guess
who's watching like the concrete structure of garages if they're deteriorating? Is that
we,
you?
ins- yeah, we inspect those and then our parking garages need some work, some of them. And then it has to be put in the capital program. Garages are tough to maintain. Inherently they're open decked. During the winter, cars track salt in. They get a lot of, it's a tough life being a parking garage in this area of the country. So,
So like in some of the garages, they have seams, joints and they need to be resealed actually technically every year on the Route 128 garage is specified. Who does that?
that's third party contractor under revenue. So they would do the work. So yeah, you don't usually do the seams well, maybe 128 garage. I'm not familiar, but maybe there's something unique about that they have to redo the expansion joints every year. But every year's kind of a quick turnaround for that. Um, but but yeah, you have to maintain parking garages, not just parking garages. If you don't maintain your infrastructure, it's think about what it takes to maintain an individual house. So you can imagine what it takes to maintain our facilities, and most of them have been around a long time. So
I've long
Quick thing
been
to sorry to
saying,
interrupt, Steve. So Brian, I have to drop off a few minutes early. Do you mind closing us out at 11?
Yeah, no worries, Matt.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Cool. All right. Any other questions for Dennis? I know he's got 152 stations to go worry about, so maybe we can let him go back to work. Dennis, we appreciate you. One thing I would just suggest, just on behalf of our member Newton, the station there is spelled RE instead of ER for center. Don't ask me why, but they get very testy about that. So
okay,
make sure you spell it right. Right, David?
I
I
guess
noticed that, but I chose not to bring it up.
I guess that was
I
the New
actually, I think
Yorker in me. I just must have.
I think the T spells it ER all the time, and we
Okay.
spell it RE.
Well, I know the city sued the post office over it, so we just want to keep the peace there, Dennis.
Okay, yeah, I think we have it labeled on the map as ER, but I could be
Uh-oh.
wrong.
Uh-oh.
So
Well, anyway, I appreciate you, and like I said, this is a story that is so important. We will try to keep telling it as best we can. Any assistance you can give us in getting us some quantifiable facts or figures would be most appreciated. But please keep going, keep making the stations better, make it a more productive and good environment to be in for everybody. And thank you for joining us today.
no problem. Glad to be here. It's been a good challenge. It's been a good experience. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, hopefully, and we'll just keep going forward and mentoring the people that are coming up the ranks.
Thank you. And thank you, Claudette, for everything you did to help put this all together. All right, unless there's anything else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, without objection, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. See you real soon.
Take care.
Thanks, Dennis.
Take care, everybody.